She spent 23 hours a day inside a wooden box. She did that for 7 years. And for most of that time, she could have walked out the front door. This is not a story about chains. It is a story about what a human mind can be made to believe. May 19th, 1977. Colleen Stan was 20 years old and hitchhiking across California to surprise a friend for her birthday. She had already turned down one ride, 5 young men uncomfortable. 10 minutes later, a small car pulled over. A young couple, a baby on the woman's lap. She got in. The drive was calm until it wasn't. They stopped at a gas station. In the bathroom, alone, she heard something. Not a voice from outside, but from somewhere inside her chest, telling her to climb through the window and run. She looked at the window. She thought, I'm overreacting. She went back to the car. In the back seat, there was a wooden box she hadn't noticed before. Large, handmade, with latches. She didn't ask anything. 20 minutes later, the car turned onto a deserted road. The woman got out with the baby. The man disappeared. Then he came back through the rear door with a knife at her throat and said, "You are going to do everything I tell you." He tied her wrists and ankles, fitted that wooden box over her head, lined on the inside to muffle sound completely. She couldn't hear anything from outside and nobody would hear her scream, and laid her down on the seat. The woman got back in the car. She said nothing. The car drove for hours. Nobody was expecting Colleen in Westwood. Nobody knew she had disappeared until days later. By the time they realized, she was already in a basement in Red Bluff, California, hanging from hooks in the ceiling by her wrists, while Cameron Hooker, the man who had been driving, introduced her to the rest of her life. The basement had a cot, a coffin-sized box, a whip, and hooks in the ceiling. Cameron had built everything by hand in the months before. His wife Janice had tested the dimensions while pregnant with their first child. This had been planned. The first days were designed to destroy whatever sense of self she still had. Continuously blindfolded, unable to see more than a vague brightness. Hung from the ceiling and whipped. Locked in the coffin box for hours at a time, hyperventilating, certain that each breath would be her last. Scraps of food, a basin in place of a bathroom, silence for periods long enough that she lost track of time. She learned quickly. Screaming excited him more. So she stopped screaming. Resisting prolonged everything, so she stopped resisting. She learned to leave her own body and go somewhere else in her mind. Picnics with her family, her grandparents' voices praying for her, a world where she was still Colleen. Peering under the blindfold one day, she managed to read the name engraved on his belt. Cameron. It was the only fact she had gathered about her captor in weeks. 7 months later, he came down to the basement, removed the blindfold, and for the first time let her see his face. Then he said, "They know you're here." The company, he explained, was a secret network of men. Judges, police officers, doctors, ordinary neighbors, dedicated to protecting slave owners like himself. They monitored everything, tapped phones. If she ran, they would know before she reached the end of the street, and her family would be dead before she could warn anyone. To make it real, he showed her newspaper clippings about women who had disappeared after disobeying. He had a contract ready, a slavery contract, with her new name on the signature line. K, just the letter K. He told her to sign it. If she didn't, he would sign for her, and she would wish she had cooperated. 7 months of sleep deprivation, starvation, isolation, and torture had reduced her to the most fundamental mode of human operation: survival. A brain in survival mode does not evaluate rationally. It clings to any structure that reduces immediate terror. The company reduced the terror. It explained why she was there. It gave shape to the suffering. She signed, trembling. And in doing so, she handed him the most powerful weapon he would ever use against her: her own belief. Cameron had found the company story in a magazine. It was a fictional scenario. Janice had typed the contract for him. In 1978, they moved to a trailer. No basement, but Cameron had already solved that. He built a raised platform for the waterbed and fitted a box underneath, with holes drilled through the trailer floor for air to enter. She crawled in face down. The mattress heating unit sat directly beside the box, making the temperature inside nearly unbearable. She sweated until she stopped sweating. She held her hand in front of her face and couldn't see it. She spent 22 hours a day in there. Janice gave birth to their second daughter in the bed above her. In the gap between the box and the bed frame, there was a photograph. A young woman with brown hair and light eyes. Colleen saw it every time she crawled in and out. She would learn years later that the young woman's name was Marie Elizabeth Spanhake, 18 years old, missing since 1976, a year before Colleen was abducted, never found. Cameron had kept her for less than 24 hours before killing her. The photograph was not decoration, it was a message. In 1980, 3 years later, Cameron allowed Colleen to call her family, standing beside her, finger on the hook, ready to cut the line. She heard her sister's voice for the first time in 3 years and said only, "I'm fine. I'm living with some people. I love you." Her sister cried. Colleen hung up. The family, relieved to know she was alive, stopped pressuring the police. Cameron had calculated this exactly. In 1981, he allowed a 24-hour visit to her family in Riverside. He rehearsed it in the car. His name was Mike. They were engaged. The company was watching everyone around them. She delivered the script perfectly, smiled at her family, deflected questions, posed for a photo with Cameron like a happy couple on an ordinary Sunday. "I think I deserve an Oscar for that one," she said years later. In less than 24 hours, he was back at the door. She got in the car. He drove her back and put her in the box, where she stayed for 3 more years. The couple's 2 daughters did not know she was in the trailer. In 1984, 7 years later, Janice had started going to church. A pastor told her she was living in sin. A friend asked what she thought would happen to her daughters when they got old enough for Cameron to notice. In August 1984, Janice walked into a hotel room where Colleen was doing housekeeping, closed the door and said, "Cameron is not part of the company. It doesn't exist. He made it all up." Colleen's first thought was, "This is a test." But she looked at Janice and saw something she had never seen on that face before. Real fear, and the particular exhaustion of someone who had finally stopped lying. They planned through the night. The next morning, Cameron went to work. They left. Colleen called her father from a payphone. He wired the bus fare without asking a single question, saying only that he would send a plane if she needed it. Before boarding, she made one more call to Cameron. When he picked up, she said, "I'm getting on the bus. I'm going home. There is nothing you can do to stop me." He cried like a child. She hung up, boarded, and never looked back. On the bus, she felt like there were lights coming out of her. "Butterflies," she said. "Luminous things." She kept wondering if the other passengers could see them. They couldn't. They were were living their own Tuesday with no idea that the woman beside them had just escaped 7 years inside a box. The police found the trailer. They found the box under the bed, the chains, the contract, and rolls of undeveloped film hidden inside a book. Photographs of the cot, of Colleen suspended from the wooden frame, of the signature as Cameron Hooker was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 104 years. As he was led out of the courtroom, he said out loud, "I should have killed her, because dead people don't talk." The judge's response read into the record, "I consider this defendant the most dangerous psychopath I've ever dealt with because he appears to be the exact opposite of what he is." Colleen Stan rebuilt her life. She has a daughter. She advocates for survivors of domestic abuse. Every year, she and her family celebrate the day she got on that bus. She doesn't cry when she describes the box. She cries when she talks about Marie Sponhake, the girl in the photograph whose body was never found, whose case remains unsolved, whose sister shouts "Happy Birthday" toward the sky on the right day every year. Colleen says she thinks about her often. She chose life, she says, inside a box in the dark, with nobody knowing. That is probably the most courageous sentence ever said about an ordinary Tuesday.